Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Today is March 17th. This is the week of our new year. In just a few days, in 4 days actually, the 21st is going to be our new year, and we're excited about all that is happening in our nation with regards to our new year. We've made so much progress. We've done so much awesome work as a nation. We're growing very quickly, and we're preparing for the influx of Moors that are going to be waking up. It has already started. Our nation is is situated to grow so quickly that it's just unbelievable. And those that are waking up, they're already starting to realize who they are and seek the information. And fortunately for us, we are prepared. We can point them to information based on what we've done already. So we're excited about that because our new year is going to be even greater than this past year. This past year was awesome because of all the, the answers that we got from the ancestral energy. So we're just looking to see what else the ancestors have for us this coming year, so we're excited about that. So speaking of this year, the word for this year is for our whole nation. Just one of the main things that we have to implement this year, if you haven't implemented it already, because most of us have. But the word for this year is govern or be governed. Govern or be governed. That's it for this year. Either you're going to be governing your bastard state or you're going to be governed by those who were pretending to be governed. And when I say govern or be governed, there's a couple of things. And that's in every area. So I've had questions from Moors about, when do we get the 10,000 square foot home? When do we get this? When do we get that? Well, have you governed what you have already? Have you governed what you have? Are you governing what you have already? So if you're in a one-bedroom apartment and you have someone claiming to be the Lord on your land, have you governed that situation so that whoever that is knows that they can't tell you where to go or what to do on your own land or charge you anything on your own land? Has that situation been governed? If not, they're going to come in and try and govern it, where you go and what you do and what you say and where you live, where you domicile and where your heirs are going to domicile, etc. So a lot of times the ones that ask that question are people who are more who think that they're being evicted from a place. And they say, we're tired of, them evicting us. Stop letting them evict you. Do the liens and court actions and then stand. And be your own police and be your own government. Whatever government service is there. Tell them, put it on the public record rather, because you don't really have to tell them anything. They already know. But put it on the public record that you made your payment to your government, and then pay yourself your rent. Because you're not, again, it already belongs to you. It already belongs to you. So you don't have, we have to learn to govern right where we are first before we can move to anywhere else. Because if you can't govern them in a one-bedroom, how are you going to do it in a 10,000 square foot home if they come and say, Well, we haven't received any fiat for this, so you don't, they knock on the door and you just open it. That's where wherever anything on this land we can have. But we got to govern where we are first, effectively. And when we govern where we are first, no matter where you are in life, okay, no matter where you are in life, govern that right there, right now. And then it'll be easy to govern a 10,000 square foot domicile or, whatever it is that you have in mind for yourself. So whenever people ask that question, when are we going to get this and when are we going to get that, how are you governing what you have already? How are you governing it? Not somebody else coming in trying to tell you what to do or when to make a payment on your own land. So this year, for this whole year, that's the deal. Govern or be governed. What happens when we fail to govern our vast estate? Starting with our temple. Let's just start there. With just our temple. If we fail to govern our vast estate to include what we eat, let's just say we don't govern what we eat, then guess who's going to try and come in and govern it, because they're going to say you don't know how to govern what you eat. So someone doing business as Dr. Somebody is going to come in and try and govern what you eat, because they'll say, well, you're unhealthy, you're this, you're that. That means you don't know how to govern what you eat. What happens when we don't govern where we live? Then someone else will come in and say, okay, well, you got to make a payment here, you got to make a payment there, you got to do this, you got to do that. We do have to show that the estate has been properly accounted for. We do have to be accountable. We have to show accountability. But we don't have to show it to them when we're showing it to our own government and our own self, which we are our own government. That's what self-governing is. And that goes for everything. That's why, we're governing everything, period. Because there's no other government but the Moors. We're governing the mail because we're all the postmaster generals. We're governing the court because we're all the sovereign supreme justices on the land, all of us. And if we don't, those who choose not to govern the court, guess what? A fake court is going to come in and say, well, then we'll just go ahead and govern you. We govern our court. So that's where court actions and liens and all of that comes in at. When we're the ones saying who has debt and who doesn't have debt, then no one can come in and say, oh, you have this debt, you owe this, you owe that. How do we do that? We know how to do that. And for those who don't know how to do it, we're learning how to do it. And that's what all of this is us learning how to govern our own vast estate. We don't have a choice. I'm telling you, we don't, because I'm not taking no for an answer on any of this stuff. It's our estate. It belongs to us. A lot of times the ones who, and it's only been one or two here and there that will say, how come we don't have this and we don't have that? What are you doing to govern that? What are you doing to govern it? If you govern it, you will have it. If you govern it, you'll have resources if you govern your resources. You'll have resources. Resources will be everywhere when you're governing them. And that's something that, this year, govern or be governed. And it's actually been that way the whole time. Any place that we are feeling like we need to, any place that we feel lack, we need to pay more attention to governing that area. Any place that we're feeling lack, we need to. And we need to be the controller of it. First in our own lives. And the ancestors are they're still giving us degrees on how to do that. We didn't remember all the degrees all at once because the picture is huge. The outcome is huge. And some people get upset because they don't have an answer dropped in their lap today. Well, they're the answer, that's why. No one's going to drop anything in anybody's lap. I've had ones ask about when are the Moors going to give us money? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Have you demonstrated your sovereign status? Are you governing in your territory? That's where all of that comes in at. Seek ye first the empire, and all that stuff will be added unto you. How did the bibliothek know that? Looking at us, saying that's why the Moors are the wealthiest on earth, because they govern everything. The earth is our table. All we have to do is look and pick and choose what we want from the table when we govern it. But if someone else is putting all the stuff on the table and you walking up like a child with your empty plate, then they're going to put whatever they want you to have on your plate. And if they don't want to put anything on your plate, they're not going to put anything on your plate because they're going to say, you're a child, and I'm talking about colonization. And I'm not going to have anyone doing that for my heirs, I only have one heir right now, today. But hey, we get to determine what our heirs can have access to. What are you doing to access your estate? I'm going to do everything I can, and most Moors are going to do everything they can to access their own vast estate. And we're all doing that together at the same time, because this is wake-up time. And we have a 10-year plan, we have a 30-year plan, we have a 1,000-year plan, and we have a plan into perpetuity. We have a one-day plan, a one-week plan, a 7-day plan, rather, a 7-day plan. Because we know 7 days is it. 7 days in a month, 7 days in a year, 7 days, period. According to our writing. So there's no one of us that can lay our troubles at someone else's feet and say, hey, what are you doing to fix this? What are you doing to get me some money? What are you doing to do this, and what are you doing to do that? When is the government going to do this? And that's usually someone who is the government talking like that. That's usually someone who's the government already, looking at somebody else going, when is the government going to do this? Go look in the mirror. When is the government going to do that? Whatever it is that you need. Go look in the mirror. When is the government going to do this or that or a third? Look right in the mirror and answer that question. And whenever you feel the need to say, when is the government going to do this or that, just say, when am I going to do this or that? Look in the mirror and say, When am I going to speak to yourself and say, when am I going to provide for my heirs? When am I going to govern this vast estate? When am I going to access my resources? When am I going to access the vast estate? Recently, we talked about having a 100% success rate where our Moorish sovereign post office is concerned. Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that, Justice Onlango. I'm glad that you can hear. Good. We recently talked about our sovereign post office. Because, see, we said a while back that we were opening the post office. We said that. And then we did it. How did we open the Moorish post office? We opened it by going out, and we have our own stamp, we have our own everything, and we go out and we hand deliver our parcels to whomever needs them delivered. And then the only time we use the post office, because it's still the post office, when we deposit into the box, is if it's going someplace outside of, because there's no place that's outside of our jurisdiction, we know that. But if it's going someplace that we can't get to right away. Well, that's governing. That's governing. That's governing the land. Did you know that every sovereign parcel that we put out there is marking our territory? It's literally marking our territory, saying this is coming from a sovereign territory or reservation. And if we're saying someone is, unlawfully occupying, then that's telling them, get off of our territory, because it's ours. Unlawful occupation of our sovereign land. That's ours. That's our territory, our reservation. And when we say reservation, we spell it differently. It doesn't mean that place where people who are not us necessarily, who are not the primogenitors, let me say that, because they're us, but they're not the primogenitors, have been suffering. We want their suffering to stop too. That's why we have to do what we're doing right now. So when you deliver your documents out into your land, all you're doing is saying this land and everything on it belongs to us. And with every parcel, even when we deposit it in and it's taken by the subject to another part of our land, that's marking our territory. The parcel is a living parcel. That's governing the land. Because, see, we have to notify them before we start getting into the resources, going out on the land and pulling and getting and, enjoying. So when we send our parcels and when we hand deliver our parcels, we're letting them know we already know everything. Every place that this parcel goes belongs to us, including where you're unlawfully occupied. And any resources thereof belongs to the heirs. That's governing. Governing is not something you can do from sitting on the couch and waiting for somebody to drop something in your lap. Governing is taking an active role, like the prophet said. And those who say, well, you can't tell me whether I'm being active or not, that's part. Just whenever you hear that, just know that, okay, because that type of energy is not necessary to illustrate that you're governing. And that's the thing in the chat, justice. The upliftment of fallen humanity does not mean what's in it for me. Believe it or not, everything is in it for us. That's the part I don't even, like, how can we miss that part? Everything is in it for us. But we can't pursue the things. The things are not the reason. They can't be the reason. We have to pursue the growth of our nation and the upliftment of everyone. That has to be the goal. And when we do that, everything, it has to come because it's a part of who we are. It has to come. All the resources, they have to come with us. They don't have a choice. They don't have a choice. They couldn't go with corporate. They have to come with us. The corporates haven't even scratched the surface of our vast estate, period. That's why it's called a vast estate. Because the estate, even today, the estate grew by an immeasurable amount. Just today, just since we started this call, and we just started this call 30 minutes ago, the estate has grown immeasurably since then. We can't even measure how much it's grown since we started this call. That's how fast our estate is growing. And here's the thing about that, because I heard someone talking about this yesterday. When we stand and we govern, because the governance is how the ancestral energy and the force that it is, that we are, that is how we access everything. Government is how everything is accessed. And even the animals and the land, and when I say animals, just think about who all that encompasses. I'm talking all of the animals, all of them will do what they're supposed to do when we're governing. Governing, not sitting back waiting on somebody to drop something in our lap. Govern or be governed. See, and this is, I have compassion for people who say, when are we going to get this and when are we going to get that? I have compassion for them. Why? Because they're the answer to their own issues. But they just don't know that they're the answer to their own issues. They don't know that yet. So I don't even get mad at people when they say, when are y'all going to give us this? When are y'all going to give us that? You will get it as soon as you, Islam in the chat, as soon as you claim it properly, competently. It's all yours, you know, it's all yours. It's all yours. As soon as you claim it. I can't claim your vast estate. You can't claim my vast estate. We can assist one another in accessing it, though. And that's why we're even here, in all of us. That's why all of us are here. I can't claim your estate for you.
Alibaba
I can access my
El Camino
own
Bay
estate,
is in the house.
For myself. I can claim it for myself. Absolutely. I can claim my own vast estate. So another reason I have compassion for people who say things like that about, they come with their hand out and, well, we're going to get this. Because they don't realize how powerful they are. If it's Moors saying that. And Moors are the only ones that will really say anything like that. Because the hybrids already know. They already know. They don't have, they don't have claim to anything except through the heirs. You see. So that's where the compassion comes in at. you know. So, you know, yes, in the chat, that is actually what children do. That's what children do. Children come and say, when am I going to get this? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Children say that. Can you know, can I have something to eat? Children say that. Don't they? So when someone says something like that,
you're never going to have that property,
then
Pauline.
I know that, then guess what? I already know that, you know, I have compassion for them. I do. Because they don't know that they have to actually grow up and take responsibility for themselves. So we don't, you know, we don't really, when we see that though, we know that, okay, they have not, they've not discovered their own strength. And then when you see people trying to take shortcuts to the vast estate, where they haven't, you know, they would rather go back to corporate and try and get something there. The false mother. That's what the corporate is, the false mother. The Pope with a dress on. The fake Pope with a dress on. That's the false mother. That's the corporate. They'd rather go back to that and try and get something, and the only thing they get there is their little hand smacked, you know, by the corporate. You don't get any benefit there. We know that, because sometimes we actually, believe it or not, have more. We're trying to convince us that the corporate is giving them something, and we know better. They'll hand you a bowl of porridge, but they're going to take your whole estate. and they don't take the estate because the estate hasn't gone anywhere. As you can see, if you go outside and look, the land is still here, hadn't gone anywhere. But they will block your access to it, because they don't have access to it. See? And if you pretend to be one of them in capital letters and black ink, then what do you expect? Your estate's going to be blocked, because you're pretending to be people who don't have access to the estate. That's why we don't use black ink in capital letters to talk up to say who we are. We did that long enough, and look where that got us. So now it's, you know how they say off with their head? Decapitation just means removal from office. They don't have an office over the heirs. They don't have an office over the heirs. Period. At any time, no matter what, they don't have an office over the heirs. And so as long as we keep giving them an office over us. I see something in the chat there. I'm going to respond to it in a minute. I love it. I love it. Paying with what? And that's my response to what's in the chat. Paying with what? There's only gold and silver is money, sweetheart. That's why I love when the hybrids come in, because they ask great questions.
Oh, fuck off, Pauline. You know that's a lie.
No, I love it. I love it when you come in, because you ask great questions. And I can easily, you know, silence you, as always. But they don't like that, as you can see, because paying with what? What are they paying with? Nothing. Nothing. That's not keeping the hybrids in place. And there was a question in the chat about, you know, how come someone's paying this and paying that? What are they paying with? The same thing the hybrids who are booted out of everything are paying with. Think about that. That's not holding nothing in place. I am. We are. The Moors are. Proper documentation is holding everything in place. The Moors speaking the law is holding everything in place. Because we can see that, you know, anything that's movable and shakeable is going to be shaken and moved. And the only thing that's left is the sovereign heirs and our vast estate, because that's eternal. Period. Period. The only thing, that's why I say govern or be governed. Govern or be governed. Period. That's what this is from this point forward. So whenever you get a letter, and of course they don't send anything to us, they send it to a court. Whenever something for a court comes around, then we just govern. We just govern. That's fraud on our land. We just govern. There are no corpses on our land. We said all rise and stand, and that's what we meant. Therefore, we're going to treat everything and everyone like it's living and command it to do what we say for it to do, according to the law. That's how this works. New year, no fear, period. New year, no fear. Let's go, Moors. Let's do it. Let's do it. And this might sound like a pep talk, but it's really not a pep talk. It really isn't. It's pointing straight to the law and saying govern or be governed, period. And then we know how to govern because we have all the processes in place already. We have our own everything. Ben had our own everything. And that's only going to expand and expand and expand. And when I say have our own everything, we are accessing everything that belongs to us. And that's only going to continue. The opening of the access of the vast estate is only going to continue. But it starts with us telling them, you can't do this and you can't do that. Where I'm concerned, you can't do anything. You can't. Period. We don't go anywhere unless we consent to going somewhere. And it's actually always been that way. Now we know it, so we can exercise that. No one's taking anyone anywhere unless we consent to it. And if we say no by court action. That's how we say no. Yes, Islam. That's how we say it. Justice, that's good in the chat. The grass looks greener on the other side of the fence down with the capitalism system. Terminate all corporate contracts. Start there. Yes, Justice Frank. They painted it green, but we see that it's not green over there. Jail cells without a way out is not green. That's not green. But we now know we have a way out. And in fact, we don't even have to go there unless we consent. We never had to go there unless we consent to being there. Period. It's only by our consent. How do we tell them that we know we're not going there? By court action. We're the law and we're the government. And court action puts all of that in one place. It puts the law and government in one place, which those are inseparable when it comes to the sovereign heirs. The law and the government are one and the same because it's the heirs. And the execution of it, that's where the executive branch comes in at. Well, we're the vine that has the branches. So it's contained in the root. We're the root. We're the root. So we have all three of those contained within our sovereign status. See, people want to argue with that one and say, no, we have to do it the way they do it. We can do it that way. We can do it that way. But at the beginning and end of the day, one of us can be all of that. Because guess what? Any of us can be all of that. So when they say, you know, oh, the Moors think they're all that, they are all of that. Everything combined in one. Yes, one sovereign can be the postmaster general, a justice on the court, all of that. All of that. Law enforcement, in fact, we have a responsibility to be that. That's our job. That's our job. Exactly. Justice Theodore said, why follow the oppressors? Govern or be governed by those. Govern or be governed. We see that already. So that's it for the new year. Govern or be governed. And we can celebrate with that. We have, and I was having this conversation with one of the heirs yesterday who is just so attuned spiritually that it's incredible. But I was talking with one of the heirs yesterday who was talking about that, you know, they've just come to the conclusion that we just have to do this. We just have to do it. There's no other way. We have to be, when they talk about being the change you want to see, we literally have to be all that we want to see on our land. If you want banking, then be the bank. And we're implementing all of that. Being the bank started with opening the post office. So we opened the post office. And it didn't really start there. It started with a proper system, a gold-backed system. 2018. For us. But again, we didn't start it. We just proclaimed what was already there. We've never been off the gold standard. Never been off it. Never. All it took was for us to wake up and say, we're using we're using our own system, not that one, not the fake one. Period. That's all it took. The system's already in place. Been in place since time immemorial. Our ancestors put it in place. Same thing with the whole governing piece. All we had to do was get up and say, okay, I'm awake now. I'm the government. I'm the law. We're the government. We're the law. And no one can tell you otherwise. No one can tell you otherwise. Nobody can argue with that. Yes, in the chat. That chat is popping. Justice Omongo, bibliotext, it says become all things to all men. Yes, that's a sovereign statement right there. Become all things to all men. We're the government, we're the law, we're the court, we're everything. We're all of that. And that's to everyone. Govern or be governed. And we're going to govern. I'm going to tell you that right now. We're governing already. When I say we, I mean all more. We're governing already. Govern or be governed. This is time. And we knew that. So we're going to continue studying to access the vast estate, because that's what this is, and that's where our focus should be. Our focus really should not be on, you know, corporate stuff. Don't even look at that stuff, really. I mean, the only time we look at it is teaching us what to do, but we have to do it from our sovereign status. That's all. So we look at how they do things because they hypothecated how we're supposed to do it. And that's why our prophet said, I'm going to leave the European here long enough to teach you how to govern. We look at it, but we don't use that black ink and capital letter system. In fact, we come out of it. And we never really were in it. According to Dred Scott, we were never in it. The Dred Scott case, we were never in it. Are there any questions about how to govern the vast estate and how to implement that? And see, some Moors may not be able to get out and deliver documents, and I can't even say that, because where there's a will, there's a way. We wanted to get out there and work in that corporate status in those places, so we did whatever we had to do. We threw the heirs off to the side and went on out there and started doing whatever because we thought we had to chase some paper. So where there's a will, there's a way. All of this can be done by all of us. No more excuses. Because, in fact, the heirs need us to do it. All of this, everything that we do. Take control of everything that has to do with our vast estate. Period. So we have no more excuses, and guess what? The ancestors are not taking excuses from us. And the thing is about that, I'm so glad that our ancestors are who they are. We are our ancestors returned. We know that. So we just have to be patient with ourselves and with each other while we go through the grand rising process. So when people, you know, there's, like I was stating before, I've had one or two along the way who say, when are the Moors going to give us this? And when are they, you know, we have compassion. We love them still. And we're not even mad at them. We don't even respond in a way that is, you know, we're not going to respond in a way that's not what it should be, peaceful, etc. Because we know that they just need to get, whoever it is that's saying that needs to get up and start governing. Get up and start governing. There are no excuses. None. Are there any questions or comments about that? And I love what's going on in the chat. It's beautiful. Yes. Acknowledge, know, and embrace your divinity. That's beautiful. That's key. When people are saying, when are we going to get this? And when is this going to happen? When is that going to happen? I'm just tired of this, and I'm tired of them violating, blah, blah, blah. Then come out of that system and purpose in your heart that you're going to stay out of it. That you're not going to keep looking back, thinking that that system has something to offer. Capitalism doesn't have anything for us. It needs to get out of the way so that and it's out of the way for those who are demonstrating that it's out of the way, it is out of the way. That's the thing about this, is you can be sitting right next to someone, and one will be in misery, and the other will feel like this is just heaven on earth, because it is. Sitting right next to one another. Why? The mindset, the consciousness, and then the action. These signs will follow them that know, that remember. Even Yeshua said, greater works than what I've done will you be able to do. Greater works. The one that the whole earth supposedly worshipped said, greater works will you Moors do. In our last call, I said that I was going to prove that in the bibliotelio text, nationality was the order of the day too. And I got, we got energetic and caught up in what the dialogue with the Moors, and I forgot to point to where that is in the bibliotelio text, so I'm going to do that right now. If you look in, and let me just pull it up on my, let me pull it up on my phone so I can tell you where it is. Okay. If you go to Acts, and of course it's Acts because that's accounting. It's accounting and it's also action. Acts the 16th chapter, verses 20 and 21, and verses 36, 37, and 38. You will see where Paul and Silas, now, people want to make a big deal about, oh, so-and-so went to jail, so-and-so went to jail. You better look at them disciples and look at that Yeshua and see what really happened. Look at that. Paul and Silas were in jail. They were jailed for proclaiming nationality. That's what they were really doing, because that's what Yeshua was doing, trying to wake people up and tell them who they really are. And Paul and Silas were proclaiming their ancient Roman nationality in those verses, right? They were saying we're the real Romans and there's some fake ones pretending to govern. And the fake ones threw them in jail. So in those verses, Paul and Silas were saying, we're not Jews, we're Romans. We're the real ones, the real Romans. And what happened? Well, the fake Romans said, okay, they got scared and they said, we know you're the real ones. We know you're the real ones. So look, why don't we just slide you out the back door? And we're sorry for what we did. And they were all shaking in their boots. And people were about to lose their lives over that. And if you read Acts the 16th chapter, between those verses 20, between verses 20 and 38, you'll see that even the guard was going to lose his life. And just read the whole chapter. The guard was going to lose his life at one point too, and he got scared, and they wanted them to see what they did was they publicly, and this happens to Moors sometimes, they publicly arrested them. Publicly, in front of everybody, arrested them and threw them in jail. And that was supposed to be a deterrent to everybody else. Let that be a lesson, because there's a huge, gigantic lesson in that for the Moors. And then when Paul and Silas proved that they were not fake Jews, but they were Romans, real Romans, the ancient Romans, not the corporate Romans, the ancient ones. Because, we're all of the ancient. We're ancient Rome, we're ancient Babylon, we're ancient Israel, we're ancient everything. Because there were no others. It was just us in ancient times. And we went by many different appellations as nations, because there's many nations among the nations, among our sovereign, original indigenous nations. And so when Paul and Silas said, well, we're Romans and we're the real ones and you're the fake ones, then they said, well, we'll just put you out the side door. We're sorry. We didn't mean to do anything. You know, we didn't mean to offend you. You know, and they were really scared, as it says in the biblical text. And Paul and Silas said the same thing that I kind of said when I was in there. And they came. Paul and Silas said, and they were more bold about it than I was. I'll say that. Well, maybe not. But they said, no, you're not going to put us out of here, out the side door. Those who brought us here, go get them. Go get them. And we want to hear it from their mouth that they made a mistake. That's what Paul and Silas said. They were proclaiming their sovereign nationality as ancient Romans. And the fake Romans got scared when they did that. And you'll see, heirs, when we do that, see, don't let that. No. And I know some don't really want to hear this, but if you look back in history, anybody who did anything went to jail at one time or another. Anybody who did it, who shook the world. And you know, not all of us have to go to jail. You know, our heirs won't have to, unless they consent to go by trying to be someone they're not. That's why we have to teach them. But don't let that scare you. And even if it scares you, you still have to be yourself. You still have to be yourself, because guess what? Being ourselves is the only way out of that. See, they've made it a loop that you can't get out of if you're a citizen. The only way the citizens are going to get out of that is if they follow the Moors. And the only way we're going to be out of that is by being the Moors that we are, being ourselves. But we have to show that system that it does not have control over us. And for some of us, that meant going in it and saying while we're in there, you don't have control over any of us. Period. Period. Somebody got to be bold enough to do it. And if anybody can do it, the Moors can. And I'm not sending everybody to jail. I'm just saying, any testing, because some are going to be tested by other things. Whatever it is that you fear the most is what is generally what you're tested by. Because remember, I told you in the beginning, I was thinking, how in the world do we get past that big hairy beast? And that's what I thought it was. It wasn't that. It was a paper tiger. That big hairy beast of fake judges and policy enforcers. How do we get beyond that? How do we do it? By being ourselves. Period. That's the only way past it. That's the only way. Anyone who has ever agreed with them and said, I'll just do what they say because it's convenient, always paid a heavier price. There's always a heavier price to pay when we are not being ourselves. Always a heavier price to pay. Meanwhile, if we are ourselves, the ancestors will be gracious and give us the time and the space that we need and the answers that we need in order to govern that, to govern it. And that's why I say govern or be governed. That's what this new year is all about. And those that are governed are the citizens. Citizens must be governed. That's why they have to have a hierarchy in the animal kingdom. They have to have a hierarchy. They have to have somebody that they look to. And that's why they can't go outside of that system unless they get underneath the jurisdiction of the Moors as subjects, living subjects. But the dead, they have to have a leader. The dead has to have a leader. The corporates have to have a leader. And that's why anybody trying to get out from under them, you know, any of the citizens that don't have that aren't of the bloodline and birthright, They have to have a leader. The sovereigns don't ever have to have. We're all leaders. We lead ourselves. There are no hierarchies in our government. We just have to know it and then do it, and stay together as we do that. Assist one another, bring one another along, make sure we share information, etc. It's govern or be governed. Governing is easy. You do everything. You know, our parents always told us, oh, you can be anything you want to be when you grow up. That is true. You actually have to be everything. You have to be. We have to be. Are there any questions or comments about any of how to govern this vast estate? And we're still, again, we're growing in our governmental capacity, in our sovereign status. We're growing. We're learning. We're going to keep growing and learning. And the ancestors are giving us the answers as we go. And we are so grateful for that. Any questions, comments, etc.? Islam. And
Islam.
Islam interest.
Yes. I just wanted to make a remark about staying with that system. My brother and his wife, you know, they have, you know, a business in that system, and they do everything they can to stick to the rules, and they always put obstacles in front of them, and they always find something wrong, no matter how hard they try, and they hold up their payments. And then they find themselves, you know, not being able to pay their employees on time. I mean, and they keep working harder and harder to try to comply with the system, but they're always behind because of the system. And at once someone had told a lie about their business, they tore the business down. I mean, I remember the day my brother called me. It was a mess. It was because they take care of children. They have group homes. And it was really awful. And my brother and his wife, it took a few years. They worked hard, and they put so many obstacles in front of them to get back into that business, but they finally won their way back in, and they still have the same problem. But they love them when they finally get the notes that they're in love. They're intoxicated with the notes. But it's always continuous of turmoil in trying to do business with them. So I just wanted to make that remark. There's no peace with staying with them, no matter what you do, no matter how honest you try to be, because they thought if we stay honest, there's no problem. Well, it's always a problem. So I just wanted to share that, because what you're saying, there's no way of saving yourself with them. Anyway, thank you, Islam.
Yes, Islam. Listen, that it's a dead system. It's dead, and when it's dead, it's designed to, it's designed to keep you in debt. It's DEAD, which is a derivative of DEDT. Dead and debt, same thing. Dead and debt, same thing. That system is not designed for anybody to get on top, because if you really look, not even the hybrids are on top of the system, and that's where they operate. The ones that were supposed to be billionaires, they're not billionaires. They got debt. That's how you keep them in line, is debt. I know people I know some who have businesses and some who just in life. Supposedly, they did everything right. Supposedly. Got credit scores, quote unquote credit scores over 800, And that system, it is not playing with any of them. It's not playing with any of them. They have to come out of that system. And fortunately, our ancestors are giving everyone time to come out of that system in a manner where everything is not just, you know, everything doesn't just fall apart. But we have to be working to come all the way out, starting with proclaiming our sovereign status, our nationality with the name change and judicial proclamation documents that are under this video, and also the termination of corporate contracts, and then begin to learn the lien process and learn the court actions process. That's how you come out of that system and begin to govern your own vast estate. Is that going to be a one-day process? No, it's going to take a little more time than that. But what have we got to lose, and what have we got to gain? As far as I'm concerned, there's nothing else to do. Nothing else to do but come out the system and be out of it and stay out of it. And we're just, right now, we're just staying out of it, period. But we had to prove that. I had to prove that I'm not any name in all capital letters. I had to prove that. By not taking anything that has to do with that. And saying, all benefits belong to me. All benefits belong to the heirs. All of us. Anything that I can say, any heirs can say. All benefits belong to the heirs. Period. But no corporate will govern our benefits in our land. Period. At all. So, Empress, people are finding out now that no matter what they do, that system is not going to work. It's not going to be nice and quote unquote nice and work with you. You know, they say that, oh, we're just going to work with you. Work with you? What? What does that mean? That means, you know, we're gonna work on getting as much debt pinned on you as possible. That's what that means. We're going to work with you until we get you all the way in the grave. Hiram Abyss. That's what that means. Don't do it. But, you know, you can't tell sovereigns what to do. So we don't tell sovereigns what to do. We just make suggestions. Come out of that system. Come out of that corporate system, period. Terminate corporate contracts and keep terminating them and keep them terminated. Are there any other comments, questions, issues, anything? Islam. Keep watching, Moors, and then keep being active. But while you're doing your demonstrations, just look around you and see. You'll start seeing things like what the Empress said. No matter, because I mean, there are some people who, they wouldn't have missed a quote-unquote payment when they thought they were paying something. They wouldn't have missed the payment. And they're having issues. Govern or be governed. Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs.
Peace and grand rising.
Peace and grand rising. Islam, Moors.
Peace and grand rising.
Peace, grand rising.
Yes, Islam.
Grand rising. Islam.
Much love.
Much love to you, Islam.